Welcome. It's the Dr. Shannon Live answering your couples questions. And today's question: why do screens cause so much damage to intimacy? Oh my gosh, I field this question all the time. Thank you, listener, for sending this question in. And you too, out there, if you have your own, you can send them my way. You can use the QR code up in your corner of your screen to reach out to me for any questions you might want to have. And can land here on the Dr. Shannon Live show. So, why do screens cause so much damage to intimacy? Well, I heard the interesting information just today about the statistics of how our mental health has begun to decline, especially since the pandemic, which is quite interesting, right? Because in the pandemic, that's when screen time went up. That's where we have gotten more proficient in all kinds of formats of connecting with people on all kinds of apps and all kinds of video recordings, such as this one. So it lends itself to believe that this kind of connection isn't necessarily as suitable, because what the statistics is saying is that no longer is the culprit to the decline in mental health coming from a diagnosable disorder. It's not precursed by anxiety and or depression, even though those formats of disease and disorders have continued to multiply. But the main culprit that they are identifying is isolation. I said that. Isolation. So, as we've gotten more and more technologically advanced and being able to connect with a multitude of information, a multitude of people on a multitude of formats via a screen, which is amazing, or else I wouldn't be able to do this today, it stands then to reason that it cannot replace human connection, physical presence. And it's a pseudo form of being intimate. And so, yes, it is helpful. Yes, it is functional, but it doesn't stand in place of that actual human interaction and interfacing. So, if you think about it, for years and years and years, the worst form of ultimate punishment is solitary confinement. In fact, it already has all kinds of research that tells us that people lose the will to want to move on and live. And so we already knew this to be true of how, in prisoners, that is the worst form of cutting them off from human connection. So we translate that into where we are as a society, where we are turning to our screens more and more often, when we are using it beyond just functionality and convenience of workload and the ability to have flexibility in our work environment, that it also is now bleeding over into the amount of time that we are replacing screen communication, screen interaction, screen entertainment with the actual replacement of that human touch and presence connection. And so, where it becomes so damaging is that when a relationship is maybe not at its finest, or it is having some conflict management issues, or maybe some, lack of vulnerability and intimate connection, we might turn to our screens for a pseudo fix of what we find to be connection points with other people or events or entertainment. And so that's why it can be so damaging. We are neurobiologically designed to have a connection in an intimate and vulnerable, known and seen way through presence. And yes, sometimes that has to come in a replacement format of texting or FaceTiming or, those kinds of things, especially when there's travel involved or, there is need for transactional information in relationships. But as far as it replacing the actual seeing, being known, physical presence, the absence of human touch, um, being able to actually go and do life experiences together, then that becomes problematic. And it can be problematic to wanting to show up in your relationship, avoiding the intentionality, being distracted, and most of all, most importantly, is avoiding maneuvering through hard places in relationships. And so that's when it can become damaging to intimacy. The second part of that question that this listener sent in: do you recommend ditching screens altogether? I am never a black or white when it comes to each couple needing to negotiate for themselves that which is workable in their relationship. And I'm tend to not like err on the side of absolutes. So is it such that all screens need to be eliminated? No, we can't function in the society that we are. Everything that is profitable can also become harmful. You just need to negotiate as a couple where those lines are. And, for a lot of couples, travel is declined because we can do so much virtually. So that can be a help. But there are times when there is an absence that, screen time can actually be used beneficially. But when it becomes a distraction where two people can't be present while even in the same room because the screen time becomes the distractor or the replacement of, then we do have to have some really healthy conversations around that of what do you as a couple want to incorporate as healthy guidelines or boundaries so that you can have periods of time in the home. Maybe it's after a certain point in time at night, or maybe it's one evening where total screen time is eliminated so that we can enhance the opportunity of developing other ways of connecting with each other, having the really enjoyable conversations, but maybe some hard conversations that are necessary too, so that we can plan around what is necessary in our workload or our entertainment load, that we are able to honor the absence of those. Maybe it's just during dinner time, or maybe it's during date night. I don't know. But those are to be determined uniquely in a conversation that's healthy and open and curious with one another. And obviously, this is an old statistic even before the pandemic. Where it really becomes problematic is when those pseudo kinds of communication cross the line, where we are giving maybe another person more emotional attention, more emotional disclosure that rightfully should go to our partner. We've heard about the online affairs, emotional affairs. We have heard about how reconnection with old acquaintances um, through especially Facebook or those forms of or formats that we think we are involved in a form of a relationship that realistically only gives us half of what we need in our human connection and our human contact. And so there have been statistics that show that divorce has begun to cite the presence of social media and the connection of old acquaintances and or past romantic partnerships as entering into the equation more and more often. So we do need to also navigate what are healthy and appropriate boundaries on the protection of the us so that we don't go above and beyond, slowly, slipperily sliding into other communications that can develop into something even further. So I hope that answers your question. No, let's not try to eliminate screen time altogether because we just live in a day and age that we are going to embrace it for the positive things that it can provide our lives, convenience, flexibility, and access to a lot of really great things. But we also need to be aware of anything that's good used to excess can be problematic. Okay, that's the answer to your question of the week. Please send yours in, Dr. Shannon at shannonrobertscounseling.com, and I'll be glad to field that conversation and answer those questions that you might have. That's it. We'll see you next week. Go and love well.